Hello folks, welcome to IAS Academy. In this video, we will be discussing a current affair topic presented to you by your faculty Sushma KP. So what is the topic that we will be looking into today? What are the implications of the Middle Eastern geopolitics? In this topic, we will see why is it in use, what is the relevance of it to your UPSC, that is your GS paper 2. We will be looking into more of your USA-Saudi Arabia relationship. We will also see about the foreign policy of Saudi Arabia, and at last we will see how it is impacting India's stance. Alright, let's get the video started. Look at this. Trump's proposal to redevelop Gaza and oust more than 2 million Palestinians living in the territory enraged the Arab world, making it difficult for the Saudis to consider normalization. Let's see what are the implications. First and foremost, your Trump has announced that that is USA will take over Gaza and will drive out all the Palestinians from here. And for this, he is forcing the Palestinians who are forced out should be taken by your Jordan and Egypt. And he is going to redevelop Gaza. This is that is US President Donald Trump's solution for dealing with the Gaza issue, or how he is trying to deal with the Palestinians. On this topic, how Saudi is going to respond, or how it responded, and what are the implications is what we will see. Understand one thing, Saudi Arabia is the home to the holiest sites in Islam. So, it is more of a huge representative. Now, one more thing if you have to know about Saudi Arabia, in your West Asia region, if Saudi Arabia has to sustain, that is maintain its security, means its long standing friend is your USA. Now if this USA has taken a stance of I will drive out Palestinians from Gaza and try to solve this, then just I am trying to tell you in a simpler manner, try to understand, then its best friend Saudi Arabia. Now when I am telling best friend means it is sustaining this region, that is its security in West Asia is helped by USA, because USA is the largest arms dealer and supplier to your Saudi Arabia. So then if USA has taken this stance, Saudi also should stick to that stance. Yes or no? But also understand one more thing, when I said this area as West Asia, or let's call it Arab world, and also one of the most important things you have to consider, like I told us, it is the home to one of the holiest sites. At the same point of time, its bargaining chip in the Arab world is your Palestine, where Saudi Arabia holds a different stance, telling that it will not consider any other relationship or recognition of any other state unless and until Palestine has a home. Not Trump's version of home. Palestine has an established home or a permanent home. Until and unless this happens, they will not consider anything else. Now what is this anything else? That is recognition of Israel. You understand this, USA and Israel are good BFFs, best friends. Now USA is recognizing Israel. Yes, it's recognizing its territorial sovereignty. If Saudi Arabia being the home to the holiest sites mentioned in Islam recognizes Israel, then don't you think it will ease off much of the tensions, and also it will have a big leverage, Israel? So this is how it was happening. Asking Saudi Arabia to recognize Israel's territorial sovereignty, for which Saudi Arabia had two conditions. First is, let first Palestine get a permanent home. Second is, using this, Saudi Arabia is now trying to move from your post-oil economy and move towards your capitalism, move towards your nuclear energy for civilian purposes. It is also wanting something from this. If Saudi has to recognize Israel's territorial sovereignty, then Saudi was asking, first thing, Palestine ka issue, Palestine has to first get a permanent home. Second thing is, they were trying to build a civilian nuclear reactor or civilian nuclear energy with the help of USA for doing that. One thing, if you see, all of this was before your Gaza war. Before your Gaza war, this was the scenario. But after the Gaza war, and especially after your USA, Donald Trump told that he plans on taking the Gaza zone. Usually you know how countries work, right? When a particular country gives out a statement, they wait and they give out their response. Within 1 hour of USA announcing its plans of taking over Gaza, it was 4 AM in your Saudi Arabian time. 4 AM, Foreign Ministry of Saudi Arabia tweeted out telling, no, it will still stand towards Palestine. It is not going to agree to this. Despite all this in the backdrop, Saudi Arabia still maintains its stand in Palestine. Understanding? Now let's see. Look at this. The grand prize of Middle East diplomacy is Saudi Arabia recognizing Israel. But again, like we discussed, to do that it needs two things: Palestine, civilian nuclear capabilities. This was the condition pre-Gaza. Post-Gaza, and especially after announcement of Trump's plan, the normalization reactions or the normalization that was to happen between your USA, Israel, Saudi Arabia, now that got even more difficult. Look at this. Let's see how Saudi Arabia is in the region of West Asia. First and foremost, it is the world's biggest oil exporter. It is Middle East's largest economy. One common issue that it has is instability on its borders because of its constant conflict with your Iran. If you see Saudi Arabia's foreign policy, it will be largely centered around Iran only. It will be more of either proxy wars, direct confrontations, or in your regional policies which involve Iran. What do I mean? For example, Saudi Arabia's interference with respect to your Yemen, Syria. All of this is all centered around your Iran only. And now, especially when your USA trumps Gaza issue, he has also held that Turkey and Jordan should take in almost 2 million Palestinian people, will more escalate the already worsening security issues. As of now itself, there is severe security issues with respect to your Saudi Arabia because your Houthis, that is your Iran-backed Houthis, are already in the backyard of Saudi Arabia, especially with regard to your Yemen and Syria. In this, if this also happens with respect to Turkey and Jordan, it further puts Saudi Arabia's security in peril. Which means, and this is also the period of time, your USA is deprioritizing West Asia. Saudi Arabia cannot keep depending on USA only telling that yes, USA will be there to help me. Because USA's foreign policy, if you see, it is deprioritizing from West Asia, which means Saudi Arabia has to now develop its own capabilities to remain strong and secure in this region. Now, if you see, one of its main competitor is Iran. Iran, especially when we say Houthi based rebels, these people have drones. These people have short range missiles. And Saudi Arabia is lagging in this. So, if it doesn't make changes into its policy, then again this will always be continuing with the Iran and Saudi Arabia. And especially with USA trying to move. So, Saudi Arabia now has to consider multiple other routes to make its region safer. What is it trying to do? First and foremost, your RIA, that is, Saudi Arabia cannot move away from USA. Why? Because USA is one of the bulwark against the key regional player against your Iran. It has always saved and harbored your Saudi Arabia. At the same point of time, your Saudi Arabia cannot just move ahead with USA. Why? Because like I told you, Saudi Arabia has a different stance on Palestine. USA has a different stance on Palestine. Before this Gaza, both of them wanted to see eye to eye on this Israel, or a normalization was what was on the line. But now with the Gaza scenario, this is under attack. What are the other players? Now we can ask like a common matter, right? Does Saudi Arabia have no one apart from USA? Who are the other key players? For example, your Russia. Russia can be a key player to deal with or ease the situation in your Middle East or West Asia. But especially now with the post-Ukraine war going on, can Saudi Arabia place all its chips on Russia? That is also not there. Now, especially with respect to China, another card that they have is China card. But again, entirely relying on China, fine, they might want to rely, but China also should be willing to do, right? Willing to be entering into West Asia, wanting to be involving in Middle East. Nowadays, China is trying to take or move towards West Asia, but again, China is not going to be the country where it is going to make enemies, especially on its economic front. What do I mean that? For example, your China is a very good friend of Iran, is a very good friend of Saudi also. Now, when I say very good friend, it is China's version of very good friend. If China benefits, then it is a good friend. So, what it tried to do was it tried to settle a mediation between them. Saudi Arabia agreed for that also. Saudi Arabia agreed for a mediation led by China between Saudi and Iran. Now, Russia also it is using for mediation. It is agreeing. Because now Saudi Arabia is realizing the position that it is in. USA is not active anymore. China and Russia are the key players, but you can't put your entire chips on them. Whereas the security conflict in the zone of Middle East is becoming even more worse. And its policies, if you see of Saudi Arabia, it is either partially successful or its policies are unsuccessful, especially with examples of your Yemen and Syria. Based on this, rather than going towards your full frontal or violence or proxy wars with your Iran, it's more of going for a conciliatory mode. So, for this it is trying to use China. If China and Russia are trying to provide mediation, it is taking it alongside trying to balance its relationship with your USA. See, I told you 4 AM of Trump taking over Gaza came into picture. Immediately at 4 AM, your Foreign Ministry of Saudi Arabia gave out this. Saudi Arabia reaffirms its unequivocal rejection of and attempts to displace the Palestinian people from their land, which means they are strong on the Palestinian ground. See, it is not that your Saudi Arabia doesn't have any leverage against USA. It has its leverage of energy sector, but it won't just yet use it. Especially after your meet of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and US President Donald Trump, where Netanyahu's claims of moving towards normalization, Saudi Arabia has not agreed to it, and it has still stated that it stands strong on Palestinian state and it does not view Israel's chip in the bargaining as in any form it is not taking any conciliation but only want to take all the wins and no loses. The whole point of getting into a mediation or whole point of trying to get into a conciliation is that you have to give something, you have to give something and then you have to take something. But it views Israel as only taking something and not giving anything. This is how it views Israel. And it also feels that for the security in the region, Middle Eastern region, it doesn't see Israel or USA as the people who will bring peace or stability in the region. So it decides, and it is trying to do this, try to make friends in the region. Especially now with Egypt and Jordan being forced under your Trump's Gaza plan, where they have to take in the refugees or your Palestinians, this again puts stress on the regional stability. This again puts a regional issue on Saudi Arabia. Now, look at this. With the Gaza war, Israel ties, civil nuclear program, all of this, will Saudi Arabia become the vassal state, or was it ever a vassal state of USA? What do we mean by this vassal state? Which means a state which has considerable external influence on internal matters. Just on this Palestinian issue only we found out, yes, that despite USA pressurizing this and despite Saudis' dependence on USA on a lot of other things, it is still firmly taking a strong stand on Palestine, indicates that Saudi Arabia is not a vassal state of USA. Now look at this. Nobody in Saudi Arabia has an interest in selling out Palestinian statehood. If at all that were to happen, then what it would deeply promote is non-American attitude. This would spring up and increase in the region. Look at this. Is Saudi Arabia's foreign policy changing? Yes, it is changing. Why? Because the Saudi Arabia's foreign policies was always centered around Iran. Like we said, proxy wars, regional policies regarding Iran, centered around Iran, trying to weed out your Houthis, failed policies when it's with respect to Yemen, Syria, etc. And also it has moved from strategic rivalry and proxy conflicts to tactical de-escalation and mutual coexistence. This is the change of approach that we can see in your Saudi Arabia's foreign policy. Alongside it is accepting the mediation or talks mediated by your China as well as your Russia, Arabia's largest arms dealer. China mediated talks are being held with your Saudi Arabia and Iran on enhancing trade and defense cooperation. Why is Saudi Arabia doing all of this? That is what we discussed, the success rate of policies or the backfiring of policies that we see with regard to Saudi Arabia, with regard to Yemen, Syria, US shifting priority from West Asia, the Houthi based trouble, all this. Look at this. Look at Yemen, look at Syria, look at Iran and the position of Saudi Arabia. Right in the back door of your, that is in the backyard of your Saudi Arabia is Yemen. Unless and until it tries to get a calmer region here, it would always be a security threat for your Saudi Arabia, especially from your Iran. Why? Because your Houthi-led rebels are here. And also, if this region undergoes a calmness, also Saudi Arabia always have to be on vigilant because it has Houthis in its backyard. Understanding? With respect to your Syria, Assad regime, etc., it is trying to get in the mediation from Russia. With regard to Iran, it is trying to get in the mediation from China. So it is trying to do as much as it can in a renewed foreign policy towards your trying to meet the okay. Now, what is at stake for India? See, first and foremost, India is a good friend, or India tries to make good relationships with both Iran as well as Saudi Arabia. And it also tries to bolster peace and stability in the region. If there is going to be a scenario where Saudi Arabia and Iran are going to be at peace, the region is going to have more peace and stability, it is a good win-win for India. But the issue comes is, who is trying to bring that peace? That is this guy. This guy doesn't enter into something without massive boost for him or massive benefits for him. What he did with respect to China and Pakistan could get easily into China, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia. So India always has to be vigilant about what developments are happening in your Middle East and your West Asia. That's it, we've reached the end of the topic. If you like our content, subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, share it along with your friends. Thank you.